It's Friday, November the 11th, and time for WCYN's Coffee Break, being brought to you today by ED Gold Company, by Van Hook Hardware, by Emerson Farms, by Cedar Ridge Health Campus, by Whalen & Company, by Sorrel Home Medical, also being brought to you today by the Cynthiana Tire, by the Woodhead Funeral Home, by Eastside Pharmacy, by Cockrells Auto Center, by Hinton Mills, by Flower Depot, and by City Buzz Magazine. And now here's our host, live on location, Mr. Doug Miller.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Break. It is Veterans Day 2022. I'll tell you what, we have several national holidays. You have to say that this may be the most important because without the deeds and sacrifices represented and celebrated on Veterans Day, we may not be here to have the other holidays, folks. As always, Veterans Day on WCYN's Coffee Break is coming to you from Cockrells Auto Center, and we appreciate all the folks at Cockrells. They've hosted us out here for Veterans Day for many, many years, and I'll start off by saying right off the bat, we miss Clyde. As always, we have our veterans with us on the show today to talk not only about Veterans Day, but about the Veterans Day program that we're having up at Battle Grove Cemetery. We do this each and every Veterans Day, and a wonderful program it is. And here to talk about that and Veterans Day, Chief Master Sergeant Jim Snodgrass. Good morning, Chief. How are you?
Great, thanks, Doug. Beautiful day out there.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, that's the first thing we mentioned this morning. It seems like the weather situation is not really cooperating with us as far as the program today. But Jim, you were 33 years in the Air Force. You must have liked it, my friend.
Well, absolutely. I hadn't planned on staying that long, but I was fresh out of high school and had a draft back then, and I dug enough post holes for my daddy on an Oddville Pike. I didn't want to dig any foxholes for the Army, and I loved airplanes, so I went in the Air Force and stayed a long time.
Farm work and fence building made a lot of soldiers, didn't it? Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure did. You know, and Jim, you know, I reference your service from time to time, and I always say you had a very nerve-wracking job because you were a part of the Strategic Air Command in the day, and got to ride on huge jets with an atomic or hydrogen bomb, right?
A little over 700 hours in B-52s, flying most of the time between Russia and Alaska.
Yeah.
That was during the Cold War. I don't know how cold it was, but they called it the Cold War.
Well, we were so scared that they were going to come that way after it,
Yes,
weren't we?
absolutely.
Yeah, and you were up there to look for that and deal
Yes,
with
sir.
it if necessary. And
Yeah.
if really necessary, go on over there and give them something they won't forget, right?
We were ready.
Yeah. Boy, I'm telling you, thank God you didn't have to do it, okay?
Amen, brother.
I'll ask you to pass the bike. It'd be a different world now if we had to do that, wouldn't it, if we still had a world? Good morning, Chuck Duffy. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. It's a little damp out, but I guess I won't melt.
Chuck's eating. He's good.
Yeah, I'm eating. That was a delicious donut you guys had.
Well, I wanted to hand the mic to you while you were eating.
Yeah, but I gulped it down real quick.
Because I just want to see how fit you are this morning, Chuck, okay? 4 years as a captain in the Marine Corps, and of course, you were introduced to Southeast Asia in your term, weren't you, sir?
Yes, sir. I spent some time in Vietnam. I was in 4 years and 2 separate one-year tours, and one of them ended up in Vietnam.
Yeah. And,
The Vietnam broke out when I was in, and the reason for being a captain, it was everybody in the Marines in my 4th year, my last year, everybody in the Marines got promoted because the Marines went from about 180,000 to 300,000, and if you weren't in the brig, you got promoted, and I met that qualification.
so you was able to stay out of the brig long enough to get to the good
So
job.
I did that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I asked, the gentleman next to you already has a mic. Yeah. David Downey, United States Navy, 22 years, and a man who, folks, as Rod Stewart would say, is forever young. Aren't you, sir?
Yeah, I'm on my 97th birthday.
Wow. You've already had your 97th or heading toward that?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Well, it kind of makes me want to move over to Paris and drink the water there. That's where you're from, sir. And, 22 years in the Navy, and we've heard your story before, but you must have been like the chief here. You liked it, I guess.
Well, not in the beginning.
Not in the beginning. And we're going to go around the horn and have all of you tell more about your service. But Mr. Downey, you were on boats most of the time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about that before,
Ships.
and we'll talk about it more today. But I want to ships. Yeah. Y'all correct me, okay? The Marine over here will not let me say gun. It's a weapon, yes. And we know the little jingle there, which is not radio appropriate, of course. Most of this Army talk, you can't say on the radio. Mr. Downey, I'll have you pass the mic there to Dale Kendrick. And Dale also liked service. He was in the United States Coast Guard for 27 years as a chief warrant officer. And you have the shirt on to prove it today.
I do. Jim and I are wearing our billboards to advertise our services.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have a full-fledged shirt on. He has a necktie, so I have a little bit more pride.
I'm hoping we can get these on the YouTube. Okay, good deal, yeah.
So.
We might have you guys stand up and face the camera here.
I was hoping you'd catch Chuck with that donut in his mouth.
Yeah, well, a Marine has to eat on the run,
That's right.
Well, and Mr. Downey has on his hat, too, his Navy
Yes,
hat.
he does. Yes,
all
he
kinds
does.
of adornments
Vietnam
on
vet.
it. Yeah, there you go. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll start with you, Dale, and go backwards and give us a little synopsis of your service in the United States Coast Guard. How old were you when you went in? What did they have you doing and going and all that?
Well, it kind of like everybody else's story, it seems. If you didn't want to work on a farm, you went to the service. So my situation was, if there wasn't an economy, you found a job. And
Yeah.
raising your hand saying I do was a way out for 4 years, and I stuck for 26. And started off with boot camp and worked my way up. Reached E7, which in the Navy and the Coast Guard would be a chief petty officer. Went through that initiation, which those who know what I'm talking about will understand. From there, went to warrant and retired out at W4, 3 ships in there. My familiarity here with my brother is that on my last ship, I was the department head over the stew burners or the cooks. And,
Yeah.
So we have a commonality there. In fact, my beginning was I wanted to do something so bad. I went to my one of the command officers and said, I'd like to go to what we called subsistence specialist back then, but I'd like to go to cook school. And he says, no, you're not. And I said, but it was the fastest way up.
There you go,
And he
yeah.
says, you've got more talent than that. Or something to that effect, or I don't know what he said, but something to that effect. And so he stopped me from going to subsistence school, and so I went to the next level up, and I became a logistics specialist, whatever that means.
Yeah.
So anyhow, did a little bit
It's
of
something from here to there, right?
Yeah, I started off as a what we called a pay storekeeper, travel entitlements, followed that, and then finally got into the logistics and finished out on the contracting side. So while my brother here turned around, made eggs for breakfast, I bought them.
There you
How's
go.
that?
There you go.
All right.
There you go. And I want to remind folks, we're on YouTube this morning, as Trent said earlier, so you can see our veterans and me for what that's worth. But I want to thank Whalen and Company, folks. Really, Whalen and Company, good sponsors here of our programming on WCYN, and they are the reason we're on YouTube this morning. So thanks to everyone over at Whalen and Company. Mr. Downey, you did most of your service was involved as a cook. Is that right?
Well, not in the beginning.
Not in the beginning. Well, tell us how you started, and who's Napoleon said that an army lives on its stomach. Is that right? So they got to start with you before they can do a darn thing. But tell us about your service, sir.
Well, when I turned 18 years old in 1944, and I was drafted in the Navy. I went to Huntington, West Virginia, to be
For camp.
yeah.
Yeah.
No.
To be inducted.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And as I was going through the line, the first guy asked me, said, what branch of service you want to be? I said, Army. Next guy in line asked me the same thing. I said, Army. And third guy in line asked me that. I said, Army, and he stamped Navy. They were taking every 30th guy in the Navy. That's
I see.
the
Yeah.
Navy.
Yeah.
And I went through boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois. They left there, went to San Francisco, Treasure Island. Left there and went to Pearl Harbor. And was an all-black camp named Manana Barracks, Navy 919.
So you weren't in Schofield Barracks. You were in. Okay. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
wasn't in Schofield.
Yeah.
And we rode 55-gallon oil drums for a long time, and I'm saying, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And some guy came around one day and asked, anybody want to be a cook? My hand went up. But they didn't tell me they were getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, working at 8 or 9
Didn't
at
say
night.
early cook, did they?
But I got to be a butcher, and I kind of liked it. I got out in 1946. I was going to do 30 years. That was on my mind. They brought out a directive that anybody that wanted to stay in the Navy will give you $300 and 30 days at home.
Which
No,
would have
90 days.
Which would have bought you a right decent car then,
Oh,
maybe.
yeah, back then, yeah.
Yeah.
So we was two other fellows that wanted to do that, but they changed their mind. So I said, I always was the type of person, if I said I was going to do something, I did it. But anyway, I go to the personnel office, and the personnelman says, just sit down in the passageway. He said, the personnel office is not in right now. So I sat down in the passageway, and soon the personnel officer came in, and the guy said, you can go in. So I get up and walk in, and he looks up at me. I think it was a lieutenant, I think, or ensign, one of the two. He said, what do you want? I said, sir, I come up here to see about re-enlisting. And he said, let me see your ID card. So I handed him my ID card. He picked up the telephone and put me in the brig.
In the brig?
Yes, sir.
Well, good night.
For wanting to re-enlist. Well, it was a simple reason because I was black.
Yeah,
That was a simple reason.
And we talked about that
Yeah,
on previous
and
shows.
I hated the Navy then. I said, my name came up on the discharge list because the war was over then.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going home. So I went home and finished school, and my father, he liked to farm, so he moved about 3 miles out of town. So,
It's like we're on them oil drums. Might as well go back.
I said, well, what am I going to do now? He said, what are you going to do? I said, one thing, I'm not going to be a farmer. He said, what you going to do? I said, I'm going back in the Navy. So in 1949, I came back in the Navy. They were going to get me anyway because the Korean War had just broke out.
And you were still
and I
young
was
enough to-
right.
You were ripe, yeah.
I was ripe for that. See.
You know, I wanted to ask you and Dale a question. Both of you have been on ships, not boats, ships. And, you know, a lot of people, they go into the Navy, and I don't know about Dale, but David, you'd never been on a big boat or ship before, had you?
Now, I never was on an airplane, aircraft carrier, but I was on a troop transport.
Well, what I'm talking about, they always talk about, they get us guys from the Midwest and put us on a boat, ship. I hope we don't talk about guns today. We'll have to bring out the jingle. But, you know, and yeah, we'll let Chuck say it. He's probably got it tattooed somewhere on him. But no, the point I'm making is seasickness. If you've never been on it, tell us about your experience the first time you were on the high seas. I'm going to ask Dale the same question. We might have to go to break here, Trent, but let me know. 2 minutes. Yeah, tell us about that.
I got on a troop transport, APA 220, Okanagan was the name of it. And on Pier 32 in San Francisco, before we got to the Golden Gate Bridge, I was so sick I couldn't hold my head up.
So you lasted about a mile and a half or so?
And it took us 2 weeks to get to Pearl Harbor. And when I got off the ship, I was rocking like this.
Yeah.
But after that, I stayed on that ship 4 years.
And you get used to it.
And was never got seasick after that.
You know, I've heard that a lot.
I was on some tin cans, destroyer escorts, destroyers, but never got seasick after that. And we used to, on the tin cans, we'd be the lead ship, and water would be so rough that the ship behind us, you could see the sonar dome when you come out of the water.
Oh, goodness gracious. They don't have anything like that at Kings Island. They don't shoot at you while you're doing it. Hey, it's a wonderful, wonderful Veterans Day. I know the weather's bad, but hey, you can't spoil, like I say, if not the most important, one of the most important national holidays we have. We'll be back to Cockrells Auto Center on YouTube via Whalen and Company with you on Coffee Break after this.
E.D. Bullard Company currently has immediate openings for production associates on night shift. This is
Doug.
a full-time position with pay starting at $16.10 an hour, plus shift premium and a competitive benefit package. If you're looking
Doug.
for a great job opportunity in Harrison County, visit Bullard.com today to find out more and apply. Bullard
trying
is
to
a
tell me
leading
something, Ed?
manufacturer of high-quality
Yeah,
personal
put the mic
protective
to
equipment. $9.99. Or the BR200 backpack blower, $319.99. Make sure to check out these great steel products while supplies last and the many other bargains throughout the store at Van Hook Hardware in downtown Cynthiana.
What a better gift than a pocket knife, but not just any pocket knife will do. It has to be a case pocket knife. Case knives are timeless, handcrafted, and American-made. And what more could you ask for? Well, maybe a warranty. But wait, they are guaranteed for the life of the owner, so there's no need to look any further. Emerson Farms Knife Barn has the perfect case knife to fit that special someone. So stop by today to see all the available selections. Emerson Farm Knife Barn is located at 2731 Cincinnati Pike in Georgetown.
At Cedar Ridge Health Campus in Cynthiana, Kentucky, they offer services for short-term rehabilitation, personal care suites, long-term care, and have a secure memory care unit. What are the best things about being a resident at Cedar Ridge? Well, let's hear from some of the residents, and they'll let you know.
Just being here is great because the people are so nice to you. And if you have any questions or any needs, you just let the worker nurse know and they take care of it.
Have you had any big surprises while you've been here at Cedar Ridge?
Well, the one when we put in place a program where the bus would take you to your home community to eat a meal in your hometown. And I went back to Carlisle to Tracks. They'd had a flood in July and they remodeled it, and I really liked the results. The whole experience was great.
For more information about Cedar Ridge Health Campus, you can call 859-234-2702 or visit their website, cedarridgehs.com.
If you have a comment or a suggestion for an upcoming coffee break program, call 234-1400 or send us a message at the coffee break page on our website at WCYN.com.
It's Coffee Break from Cockrells Auto Center this Veterans Day 22, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, we're on YouTube this morning. And I want to thank Whalen and Company and all the folks there for bringing Coffee Break to you this morning on YouTube if you've chosen to listen and watch us that way, and we hope you have. As always, we have our veterans in at Cockrells Auto Center on Veterans Day. And we have Chief Jim Snodgrass, United States Air Force, Dale Kendrick, Chief Warrant Officer in the United States Coast Guard, Chuck Duffy, the old Marine, ladies and gentlemen, and David Downey of the United States Navy, 22 years of service there. I was just thinking there's 33, 26, 22, and 4. I don't know how many years of service we have here, folks, but these gentlemen have served you and our country. Yeah, well, you serve the past, the present, and the future when you do military service. But we were talking to these gentlemen who have spent some time on ships, and I had had Mr. Downey tell us about his first experience. You always hear this from Navy guys, Dale. First time I was on that ship, it was rough. Tell me about your experience, because was it the first time you'd ever been on a big ship?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. I'm a Coast Guard brat, so my father served.
I see.
And so between us, we have combined 50 years. But he was on the ship, so I was familiar with him. I can't tell you the number. 3 ships I served on. I can't tell you how many people. You mentioned the Midwest earlier. How many people from the Midwest would come into the Coast Guard and say, "I didn't know we went out to sea."
Oh, goodness.
I don't know what coast means in the Midwest, but anyhow.
They must have thought they was going to be in a canoe
story.
on the river in their town or something. I
The
don't
first
know.
ship I served on was the Coast Guard cutter Taney. To tie it in to my brother here, she was in Pearl Harbor when it was bombed. That's how old the Taney was.
Oh, goodness.
And I went in 78, so 30 years later, she was still serving. We had left Portsmouth, Virginia, had got it past the James River, had entered into the Chesapeake Bay. We were rounding around Norfolk Naval Base at the time, and we started taking on about a 6-inch roll, and I got sick.
I don't know what a 6-inch roll is,
About
but it
yay
don't
big.
sound like fun.
Yay big.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, that was my first experience of it. I realized then this wasn't going to be good. 3 ships, seasick on each one of them. I initiated all of them in one way, form, or another. But the funny thing was you do get used to it after a while. Yeah. And but in my day, anyhow, they were either pink or blue or a combination thereof, but they give you little seasick pills. Carry them in your pocket. You popped them like M&Ms, and you survived. Yeah. But we used to round hatters quite a bit. And my last ship was a medium endurance cutter, and we'd get the young officers out of the academy on board, and they had the psychological damage done to them that Hatteras is rough water. And we had one young man, I don't care how many times we went around Hatteras, he was hanging over the side, green in the gills, and letting lunch, go.
Yeah.
And that was just his nature. He could not get around Hatteras psychologically. But it's the worst experience in the world when you feel it.
They say it's a terrible sickness, and most people that are listening to us, unless they've been in the service, the first time they've ever been on a big ship, or maybe or these modern cruise ships and things that have the stabilizers and all that, and people can get sick on those. The ships you guys are talking about, they were everywhere on the water, weren't they?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, David talked about being able to watch the sonar dome come up out of the water on the ship pitching. 40-foot seas crossing the Straits of Labrador was not fun. I was on an icebreaker that had a round bottom, and we were taking.
Oh my goodness! They know what.
We were taking 40-foot rolls. Or 40-degree rolls, I'm sorry. And 40 degrees doesn't sound like much if you put it on pendulum, but when you get higher up on the superstructure, that 40 becomes a larger number.
Yeah.
But I had a quartermaster on there, was a good friend of mine, and he had a nicotine habit. I'll just say it that way. And he was piloting the ship. He had the con of the ship, and I was up there just chit-chatting with him, and he had to have a cigarette. We're out in the straits somewhere up there in Labrador, cold water, and he had to have that cigarette. Well, the standing orders was you couldn't smoke unless you went out on the bridge wings and then back of the glass so that they wouldn't see the little light and ruin the vision. Poor guy went out there 3 times within 30 minutes and took waves over the side, flushed his cigarette.
Oh my goodness gracious!
And it was just the start of his watch. So for 4 hours he stood there dripping wet just because of the need of that cigarette.
Now that we've done our commercial for the Navy and the Coast Guard, young folks, well, and the reason I don't want to make the show about seasickness, but I don't think people understand military service. They think about the training, the weaponry, and things like that, but it's a change in lifestyle. It totally is. You're told what to do, when to do it. Pretty much you're scheduled, and different food, different clothes, different living on a ship. My goodness, Chuck. Now in the Marines, generally the way they got you guys to places was on the water. The Navy generally dropped you off.
I don't
you
know.
had any experiences with you? Were you ever on a Higgins boat? Because they said those things were horrible.
I have no idea what it is.
The landing craft that the
Oh,
Marines used.
my God, yes.
They called them a Higgins boat.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That was not the official name, but is that what they called them? Yes. Yeah. It's an LTV or whatever. Anyway, you were
small. We called them Papa boats. They cram about 41 of you in there.
Yeah.
And that's where seasickness can come in. Is on those things. They rock and roll.
I've heard that they were horrible.
Close.
Well, the
you weren't on them very long.
Yeah, well,
that's why the Marines fought like the hell to get on the ship, get out of those things and get on.
Well, it was a horrible thing.
All you could do is die.
Yeah, well, at D-Day they dropped the door and the Germans are shooting at you, and you're already sick.
Yeah.
Good night. What a mess. Really.
What a mess. Yeah. You're right.
Chief Snodgrass.
Yes.
Were you ever on a ship that was in water, or all your ships in the air?
No, the only time I was ever on a ship was a cruise going to someplace out in the North Atlantic, but it was very, very calm.
Well, a similar question for you, though. What kind of experience on huge aircraft did you have before you joined the Air Force?
Well,
and what was that like the first time?
Not bad, because mostly airliners.
Yeah.
Never been in anything small, but when I went on B-52s, of course, that's the largest bomber ever built. It's 185-foot wingspan.
Oh, goodness.
140 feet long. The tail was 7 stories high, and crew of 6, and the poor tail gunner was all the way back the 140 feet, and he was getting banged around pretty bad back there. They finally, in the later models, moved him up front where he wouldn't be so badly bruised and beaten. So, but once they moved him up front, on the newer models, it was much better. But, well, I didn't have a rough ride in B-50. It was so big, even rough weather was not bad.
Yeah. Well, those planes are so huge, and of course they're loaded with fuel. When you were in the Strategic Air Command, to be up there for a long time, horribly heavy.
24 hours.
And then you got the armaments on there. How many bombs were generally? Was it just one per plane, or how?
No. We were carrying nuclear weapons, and we had 2.
Had 2. Yeah. And I don't know what they weigh, but I'm thinking, getting that thing off the ground was a task, wasn't it? I mean,
well, not necessarily.
Really?
You've got 8 engines.
Well, that'll do it, I guess.
Putting out the thrust.
Yeah.
So, and our runway at Westover Air Force Base in Massachusetts was 15,500 feet long.
Yeah.
So we were okay, even on a heavy load of fuel. We didn't always take off of the full load.
Yeah.
But because we hit our first tanker maybe 5 hours out, so we had plenty of fuel for 5 hours. And then we just kind of topped off at the tanker, in flight, about 30,000 feet. And then we went on to 48,000 feet from there.
How long were you actually involved in the work of the Strategic Air Command doing these patrols over Alaska and Russia and the Bering Strait up in there?
4 years.
4 years? Mm-hmm. And what time period would that have been? Obviously during the cold.
56 to 60.
56 to 60. Mm-hmm. And I have to ask you this, the entire nation in the world in that day and time was waiting for, are they going to push the button? Was there ever a mission where you were really concerned that you all were going to have to drop the thing?
One, yes.
Really? If you could do it without divulging anything you shouldn't say, tell us about that.
They were to send out a code, and we had a list of all the codes, and they told you what this meant. Well, when you got a code, you're looking up on the book and say, where are we going to go and when we're going to go. But it came to step 2, and I won't go into that, but closer than
I know you can't talk about all of it,
no,
but
no.
But I mean, as far as if that ever happened, I mean, there was backup before it actually happened, right?
Right. Oh, yes, absolutely. And we had other airplanes right behind us, so we had backup the whole time.
So when I was down at Marshall School learning to duck and cover, you were up there getting ready to fight back if we had to, right?
Yes.
Good grief in the morning. How much time we got there, Trent? I want to thank, again, Cockrell Auto Center for hosting, as they have done for a number of years. And again, I'll say Miss Clyde. Clyde used to be on the show with us, Jimmy Haggard, Huck Turner, and want to remember them and help me if I've forgotten anyone else. Who else? Yeah. And Jack. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Hey, keep with us for our 2022 Veterans Day Coffee Break Show. And remember, folks, at Battle Grove Cemetery, don't let the weather defray you from being a part of this. If you wish to be, if you've never been up there for this, you ought to do it. Certainly if you're a veteran or the family or loved ones of a veteran, be up there for this. It's very, very nice. And we'll be back with Coffee Break from Cockrell's Auto Center on YouTube, thanks to Whalen & Company after this.
They'll sell your house, they'll sell your farm and help you buy one too. Don't you see they've been around since 1953? They'll insure your house, they'll insure your farm and all your properties. Oh yeah, don't you see it's Whalen & Company. It's Whalen & Company.
Whalen & Company is a great home for sale located at 407 Licking Valley Road in Harrison County. The home features 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. For more information, phone McKenzie Leathers at 859-588-8890. That's Whalen & Company, 859-234-5454.
When you're sick or injured, there's no place like home. That's why they invented home medical equipment. Most people believe that Josh Sorrell invented home medical equipment, but he really didn't. He just developed a way to deliver and service medical equipment better than anyone else. So when the need arises, anything from a cane to a wheelchair, Sorrell Home Medical is the place to go. In Cynthiana on West Pleasant, nobody does it better than Sorrell. Nobody but nobody.
Friends Dan Tackett and Cynthiana Tire have been serving the auto needs of Cynthiana and the surrounding area since 1977. He likely knows you, your car, and the right questions to ask to match brand and tread type to safely meet your motoring needs. And being an authorized dealer for Goodyear, Firestone, Bridgestone, and Michelin, assure a wide selection of tires to choose from. 1024 New Lair Road at the old RECC Farm is their location. 234-4371 their telephone number. Stop by or give Dan a call today.
I'm talking with Mary from Woodhead Funeral Home in Berry, Kentucky. Mary, there are several ways to contact people nowadays. How can we get in touch with you?
You can reach us at Woodhead Funeral Home's Memorials and Cremation Service by phone 234-5232, by email office@woodheadfuneralhome.com, by website at www.woodheadfuneralhome.com, or by Facebook.
Woodhead Funeral Home in Berry, your friends are available 24 hours a day.
If you have a comment or a suggestion for an upcoming coffee break program, call 234-1400 or send us a message at the coffee break page on our website at WCYN.com.
8:32 a.m. is the City Buzz Magazine time, or thereabouts. I'm kind of guessing at that. Ed, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Ed, if you would, please, tell them about the wonderful knife from Emerson Farms that's on the auction block for our Deal of the Week item this week.
Sorry about that.
Breaker, Ed. Break. Are you there, Ed? Copy that. There you go, Ed.
I didn't have the information in front of me. I thought you guys were going to do that. But our Deal of the Week this week is courtesy of Emerson Farms in Georgetown. It's a Case Blue Bone Rogers Corn Cob Jig Small Texas toothpick knife. One long clip blade, 3 inches when it's closed, retails at $68. I'm sitting at $60. $60 is where we are at the moment. If you'd like to take a look at it, head over to WCYN.com. Click on that Deal of the Week page. It'll bring a photo up. You take a look. You place your bid, but you got to do it quick because about an hour, a little under an hour and a half or so, we're going to let it go a little before 10 this morning. So Deal of the Week, courtesy of Emerson Farms in Georgetown. That Case Blue Bone Rogers Corn Cob Jig Small Texas toothpick knife. One long clip blade, 3 inches when it's closed. Retails at $68. I'm sitting at $60. Give me a call, 234-1400, or text us on the Knopflaw text line and get your bid in.
All righty. Thank you, Ed. Want to also remind you, in support of the Community Christmas Project Toy Drive, there's a dinner party on December the 3rd. It's out here right beside Cockrells at 4478 U.S. Highway 27 South. From 6 to whenever, they'll be collecting toys at the party, folks. They want new toys now, and they do not want them gift wrapped, okay? That's so I guess they can see, divide them up and get them to the proper place. You can also drop toys off at Cockrells Auto Center right here where we're at this morning with Coffee Break at 4320 U.S. Highway 27 South. What now? When? It is, when is it? When does it say there? Is that today or?
December 3rd.
Oh, December 3rd. Yeah, I said that. I think I did. Yeah, I said that. Didn't I say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. There you go. The chief is backing me up. And when we were trying to decide who was going to do the Deal of the Week, the chief said, don't y'all get this straightened out before the show? We like to do our production meetings on air so that everybody can be part of it and participate. And, I get to talking to you gentlemen and sometimes, really forget where I'm at, and thank you, each and every one of you, really. But, Chief, if you would, please, tell the folks what they need to know about our wonderful program at the cemetery today, at Battle Grove Cemetery, and so we'll know about that first and foremost.
It's pretty much like we do each year. The main thing we want to remember is those veterans that we've lost. That's upmost in our minds, I think, most of the time. And then, of course, everyone that has served, even though they're still living, they gave a lot of their lives. Their family gave a lot of their lives. But we very seldom ask people to do anything, and they come back with a no. It's almost always a yes. So, of course, Billy Grayson's always the master of ceremonies. We have the ROTC presenting the honors. The national anthem, Karen always sings the national anthem for us, and it's great, as usual. The Pledge of Allegiance, Master Sergeant Fortner is going to do that for us this year. They play a medley of all the different branches of service, and then Carol Hyatt will ask you to stand when she sings your particular branch of the service.
And that is cool. That's a cool part of the program.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. And then, of course, we always have a chair there that's covered in black, and that's just to remember those that we've lost.
Yeah.
And then the guest speaker was Major Montgomery this year. I asked Major Montgomery if he would do that for us this year, and more than, he said he'd be more than happy to do it. He really would. He's been at Harrison ROTC for many, many years. along with Sergeant Fortner, and they do a great job. They've got a great bunch of kids. No, well, they're young boys and girls, and so they always involved every year. We can always count on them, always. We have folks come up from Falmouth. It's the American Legion, and they have the 21-gun salute, and that's toward the end of the program, the very end of the program, when the band is always there. This year we're doing taps at the end and then an echo, so there will be two of the band members doing that. One will stand close to do the first version, and then the echo will be further away somewhere else up there on the hill. But yeah, we've got, no one ever tells us no. There's, and I hope I haven't left anybody out, but there's the DAR will be there with refreshments. I'm afraid I'll leave somebody out.
Well, and once again, that's today, folks, 11 a.m.
Yes,
Battle Grove
always
Cemetery.
11. And because that is
and if you're
always,
a veteran, they treat you real special. Be up there for that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have time to tell about.
You've got all the time
Okay.
you need, yeah.
The reason it's 11, 11, and 11, we call it the 3 11s because it's the 11th month, the 11th day, and the 11th hour. The armistice was signed in 1918 in France at 11 o'clock on the 11th month of the 11th hour, and that's where it began. And then later on, back then it was called the Armistice Day. And in I get my notes here, 1926, it was changed to Veterans Day. And then in 1954, it was changed to Veterans Day. And hopefully it will remain Veterans Day. But in 26, they changed it to Veterans Day. It was Armistice Day before then, from 1918 to 1926. It was called Armistice Day. And I can understand that because that's when the armistice was signed. But that's the change, and I hope it'll always remain Veterans Day.
I'm going to try to structure this a little bit, if you guys can believe this, okay? Yeah.
What day
Trent
was
thought
that
was
now?
really, yeah.
Don't confuse us.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. There's a couple of questions I want you each to address as veterans, and then I want to go around the horn one more time and have you tell whatever experience you want to. I know, Chief, that you always like to memorialize your good buddy Joel Fields.
Absolutely.
And I want to give you a chance to do that. But the first, we are in the habit, and it's not a bad habit at all, but when we encounter a veteran, thank you for your service, okay? And I'm not saying you all get tired of hearing that, and it shouldn't be a platitude. But Chief, as a veteran, okay, and this may seem like a sophomore question, but what does Veterans Day mean to you? I'm going to recognize you, honor you, thank you, but I'm not a veteran. As a veteran, what does Veterans Day mean to you?
Well, even though I was not in Vietnam and some of the other places, I was a kind of a backup. In other words, we fed those that needed to be fed what we had. I think one of the most humbling experiences probably I've ever had was decorating the tomb of the unknown soldier in Arlington National Cemetery in 1958. And if I can take a little extra time, Joel Fields, a very close friend of mine, and I went in June the 28th, 1956.
Harrison County boy. Harrison
County, right straight out. We went to school, high school together, and we both decided to go in the Air Force together, so we did. We went through basic training together, and then I went to Amarillo Air Force Base studying aircraft, and he went to Schenectady, New York to study foreign languages. So after he did that, he went to Armenia, and unfortunately he was flying on a C-130, which is a 4-engine prop airplane, no guns, anything else. 4 Russian MiGs shot him down. Lost all 17 on board. They would not let us come in to get the remains until much later. The Russians wouldn't let us in there. Later on, about 8 years later, they were allowed to go in, and they collected the remains of all 17.
So we do have Joel. Is Joel back here now? Or
He is in
he's
Arlington
there?
National Cemetery.
As he should be.
Right,
As he should be,
absolutely.
yeah.
So we decided in '06 that we'd do a program just for him on Veterans Day. And we had a memorial put there, and the Veterans Walk, in case those of you listening don't know where the Veterans Walk is, when you go in Battle Grove Cemetery, if you'll take the first right, and right there on the right, you'll see a brick walk that's called the Veterans Walk. And it's right down in front of the 3 flags that are out front. And this morning there will be, with the rain, and that we do it every year, there's a big tent and chairs so you can come and be seated and dry and all that. But that's the program we did in '06, and I've been involved since then.
Remember Joel Fields. Chuck?
Yes.
What's Veterans Day mean to you, my friend?
Well, I just kind of echo what Jim just said. These folks were in for a long time. I was in for 4 years, where every day was a holiday and every meal was a feast.
Yeah, but
you're supposed to laugh.
You were in Nam. You were in Nam, and a day in Nam is like 10 years, I think. You know, so yeah.
Well, no, but it's nice to be recognized. We weren't really recognized when we got back. Yeah. I got back in 1967, I believe it was, something like that, or was it 73?
Yeah.
My memory isn't what it used to be, but I wasn't criticized or, nobody picked on me or did anything like that. But there was no recognition like we're getting right now, and that's kind of nice. But Vietnam was not a popular war, and that's just the way it was.
You know, I had General Montgomery, and who's the teacher with him up there? Fortner. They were on the Coffee Break show with me one time, and I was talking about the fact that Nam, because it resulted in people being drafted and because of the overall experience, by the end of Vietnam, the military really wasn't cool, was it? I mean, I don't know when it wasn't a cool thing to do or want to be in or be a part of, really until probably the early 80s when we kind of had a repatriotization, if that's a word, of our country.
It's 180 degrees the way it, from way it is now. Now, you're kind of proud to have been a veteran. Well, I always was, but
Vietnam was such an unpopular war on many fronts, and you look back historically, did we handle it well or not? But I know you came back with the Vietnam vets, and the ones that came into the big cities and stuff, they were met with placards that said "baby killers" and that kind of stuff.
I think so. Yeah.
Dale's got to go.
Oh, Dale. Okay, Dale, do your thing there. Dale Kendrick, thank you again, sir. What does Veterans Day mean to you? And talk about whatever you want to while you're here.
The Veterans Day starts off with it was a day off. That's beyond, it's a day off.
Yeah, there you go.
And if you've ever seen the movie, and I highly recommend it, the documentary rather, the Band of Brothers, you begin to understand after so many years in service, so many days in uniform, what that means. And then you start to realize the swelling pride that you had served, but there's others that have served. And more importantly, we've got 4 out of 5 armed forces represented here today, sitting in your audience, or sitting here on the dais, whatever we're going to call this. But every one of us has lost a brother in arms, whether it was the Coast Guard in a peacetime mission or on the shores of Vietnam. We have lost a brother, our sister. And so we have fond memories of those, but we really are bonded together by our community of shared circumstances, good and or bad. There's some humor that we could share that we understand that maybe what doesn't come well across the radio, but one thing I share with my experiences is that I've been fortunate enough to have served with other services in different capacities, even at smallest point. But I share this story. Back after the Walker escapades in the 80s and the military intel loss because of what they were doing. We had beefed up our national security, our handling of classified materials and all. And I happened to be in London, England at the time, believe it or not, Coast Guard in London, England. I used to tell them we were protecting their coast, but that's another story. But I had to go
a lot more coast than the Coast Guard used to.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but I had to go to Rota, Spain to get the training for this classified material handling. And Rota is a Navy base, Spanish base, but it's a U.S. Navy base, and on the center of that somewhere is a very secure communication station. And I had to go to that station to get the training. And so I walk up, outside perimeter is guarded, Spanish guards are there, get through them. I get inside the building. There's a young Marine, Chuck, this is why I'm telling the story. There's a young Marine standing security. There's an E6 standing there with him. And I'm in a dress uniform, and the guy does not know what my uniform is.
Uh-oh.
He wanted to know who I was, what I was, where I was coming from. I even had a little billboard on here that says U.S. Coast Guard, But he had no idea what I was. But the E6 did. And so the E6, and I was E7 at the time, so the E6 processes me through. He recognizes that anchor that the Navy and Coast Guard chiefs wear. So he knew, something. But that poor young private or corporal didn't know anything. And anyhow, they checked me in. Next thing I know, that poor Marine was getting berated up one side and down the other because he did not know a Coast Guard uniform. So, but we all share common bonds, and that's what makes Veterans Day.
Dale Kendrick, ladies and gentlemen, a Chief Warrant Officer serving us for 26 years in the United States Coast Guard, and he's got the shirt on to prove it. Dale, thank you very much. Sorry you had to go early, but appreciate it, and thank you, sir, very much. Okay, now, Mr. David Downey has the mic in his hand, but we're going to have to wait. Well, we're saving him for last. He's waited for 97 years to do this, so we're going to give him all the time he wants. We're on YouTube, thanks to Whalen and Company. We're at Cockrells Auto Center with the 2022 Coffee Break Veterans Show. We'll be right back after this.
Your Health Mart pharmacy in Cynthiana is Eastside Pharmacy. Friendly faces and people who know their customers by name. That's what separates Eastside Pharmacy from the rest. They provide medication reviews, diabetes products and services, email and text refill reminders, and even local delivery. Don't forget about getting your flu shot. Now it's as important as ever. The best defense against the seasonal flu is to get your annual flu shot. For maximum protection this flu season, get your vaccination by the end of the month. And be sure to stop by soon to stock up on cold and flu essentials. Call Eastside Pharmacy at 234-6800 with any questions, and you'll get a familiar voice on the other end. Located at 430 East Pleasant Street in Cynthiana. They're open Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 7:30, Saturday from 9 to 4, and Sundays from 10 to 2. Family owned and operated since 1974. Eastside Pharmacy, your local Health Mart pharmacy.
Recovering from the trauma of a car accident is stressful enough. Finding a good repair shop shouldn't make it worse. Cockrells Auto Center on US 27 South has been at the same location since July 1981. And with 10 technicians, you will get your repair work done right the first time in a timely manner. So take the anxiety of repair off your shoulders and allow Cockrells Auto Center certified technicians to return your vehicle to its original condition. Cockrells Auto Center, locally owned and operated since 1981.
At Hinton Mills, we consider ourselves part of your farm team. From scouting, diagnostics, and soil sampling, to delivery, spreading, and spraying, we appreciate the opportunity to spend so much time on your farms. We feel invested in your success and realize that we only win if you win. That's why providing you with trusted products, trusted advice, and trusted service remains so important to us. Our team looks forward to farming alongside you again this year. Thank you for the opportunity. Hinton Mills, serving farmers since 1918.
You need to get your Christmas shopping done before it's too late. There's no better place to shop than Flower Depot in downtown Cynthiana. The Flower Depot has something for everyone. Great stocking stuffers, unique ornaments, fresh evergreen wreaths, and the always popular poinsettias. Also, the Flower Depot is your local Elf on the Shelf headquarters. There's something for everyone. Don't wait until the last minute. Come in to Flower Depot today, 208 South Main Street, Cynthiana, 234-2001.
If you have a comment or a suggestion for an upcoming coffee break program, call 234-1400 or send us a message at the coffee break page on our website at WCYN.com.
And it's Coffee Break this Veterans Day 22 coming to you on YouTube, thanks to Whalen and Company. There you go, get the mic up a little bit. I've had mic trouble today, folks, and hopefully we've remedied that by me holding the mic up. A new modern convenience here, the human hand. Want to remind you, first of all, and very importantly, be a part, if you can and wish to be, of the Veterans Day program. They do it every year at Battle Grove Cemetery. It starts at 11 a.m. today. The chief just told us all about that. There's the program, and that is a nice thing. Don't let the weather deter you, because weather never deterred these fellas and ladies that have served our country. Now, in the hands of David Downey. Mr. Downey, grab the mic there, please. And as I said, let me see here. Yeah, I want to ask you the same question that I posed the others here, and that is basically, what does Veterans Day mean to you, sir, a gentleman who served? I was trying to look here, 22 years in the Navy. And, you know, I was talking about the other aspects that people never think of, like seasickness and the change of life. You mentioned one a moment ago that I want you to speak to also, and that is when a man's overseas in the service, if you got a woman waiting on you. Talk about all that. Yeah.
Well, I have to agree with everybody else when it comes to the military and how we felt about being in the military and being a veteran. I get a lot of young kids walk up to me and say, "Thank you for your service." I mean, kids that don't look like they're 5 or 6 years old, and they've been taught that. You know, someone has told them about that.
Oh yeah,
And that makes you feel good when a young kid. And then some old people walk up and say the same thing to you, and it makes you feel good that you've actually done something that somebody appreciates. That's the good part about it.
Yeah.
And you know, it just makes you have a good feeling when somebody does that for you.
She waited on you, didn't she?
Well, yeah. Well, I tell you,
it's not all of them did, though, but yours did.
When I first met my wife, she couldn't stand me.
That's the way a lot of them start out. Yeah. Mine was the other way. She liked me at first, and it went. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but she couldn't stand me at first. You know, I guess I must have grew on her. You know, and we went together for 3 years before we decided to get married. And I'll tell you a story about this. I was in Norfolk, Virginia on this troop transport, and I was going on leave to get married the Friday. So I go out Saturday, or go out Thursday, get my head badged, and come in. I'm in my rack, shoes on, hat on, clothes on.
Trying to recover.
The inspecting officer came around and said, "Downey, what are you doing in that rack?" And I didn't have an answer for him, you know. He said, "Come on, I'm gonna take you up. I'm gonna put you on report." I'm saying to myself, "Oh, I'm in trouble now." So we go up to my division officer's office. My division officer was a full captain, and he said, I forgot his name, but anyway, he said, "I caught Downey down in his rack with his clothes, shoes, and everything." He said, "I'm gonna put him on report." So my division officer says, "Well, let me tell you." He said, "Downey's going home to get married tomorrow," and he says, "We need to wait." So he looked at me, and he said, "I'm gonna do you a favor, Downey." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I'm not gonna put you on report this time." He said, "But if I ever catch you like this again, I'm gonna hang your butt." But went home, got married. When I get home, I get a telegram. Report back to the ship immediately.
Just as soon as you got married.
Yeah. I'm saying, "Wait, what is this?" You know. And I'm saying, "No, I can't go back now." Next day, I got another telegram. Same thing, another telegram, same thing. And I'm saying, "I can't go back now." So this was on a Sunday. Got a telegram on a Sunday. So that Monday, I said, "I better go back to the ship before they hang me." So I go back to the ship on that Monday afternoon, get back to Norfolk, Virginia, and they put me on report, and they restricted me for 30 days. But the ship wasn't going any place. We were getting ready to go to Korea anyway. So restricting me for 30 days didn't mean nothing.
It's all right. I'll wait. Yeah.
So we went through the Panama Canal at least 4 times, back and forth, 4 times, and we got on the West Coast. Actually, all but 6 months, no, 3 years of my time was spent on the West Coast and out in the Far East. I was never in Europe or anything like that. All my time was out west and in the Far East.
But after you got married, there was a long period of time before you saw her again.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long was it?
Year and a half.
Year and a half. So you got married and didn't see her for a year and a half, and she waited on you.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's a testament to just what kind of man you are, sir.
Well, it's a testament of what kind of woman she was.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, there you go. I want, just on a personal note, and I generally try to do this. I had a wonderful great aunt, Naomi, and she kind of helped raise me and took care of me. I had a broken jaw when I went to law school. My mouth was hard together. She went with me and cooked for me. Her husband was a gentleman named Carl Keller, from a country boy, mountain boy from Clay County, West Virginia. I never knew him, but he was always a hero to my dad, and I think an inspiration to my dad, who was a Marine, because Carl Keller was in the Army, and I've seen him, and it's impressive to see a Silver Star. But he was in Italy in the Army, and I don't know what, he was a leader of a platoon or something going up doing reconnaissance up through Italy. And he got a Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, 3 Purple Hearts. Wow. They'd send him back. He kept going back. Nelma used to meet him at a tree on the U of L campus, and she showed me where it was, because he'd come in at Fort Knox or one, but he kept going back. Unfortunately, the 3rd Purple Heart was for him getting killed. He stepped on a landmine or something near Anzio, and so. But I never knew the man, but I know him. If y'all know what I mean. Mr. Downey, I'm going to ask you to pass the torch to the Marines and the Air Force. Gentlemen, your final words. Yeah, got about 2 minutes, Trent says. Okay.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for allowing me to show up, and I'm glad I'm here.
Well, just like a good Marine, you do show up.
Yes. Amen.
Amen. There you go.
Okay.
Chief?
Yeah, I appreciate Cockrells and WCYN for letting us do this, and I've been doing it for 16, and maybe I can do it for another 16.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Doug, for you as well.
I expect to see all 3 of you back here in 16 years. Now, at that time, you will be 100 and what? I think you're going to make it, though. I really do. You're as vital a 97-year-old man as I've ever seen. The Navy must be good for you, that's all I can say. Listen, folks, want to remind you one more time, support the project, the Toy Drive project. There's a dinner party for that on December the 3rd. It's right out here beside Cockrells. That's from 6 o'clock to whenever. They're going to be collecting toys that night. And then also you can bring new toys. Don't gift wrap them. Bring new toys to Cockrells Auto Center right here where we're at this morning for our, and you can do that, I guess, up through Christmas, I guess, right? And they'll make sure that every kid has a good Christmas. And boy, that one reason that these gentlemen have made the commitments, and the reason that the people in Arlington and other places made the commitment, is so kids and Americans can have Christmas and can have America. And even though it seems like we're in a territory now where a lot of us are the strife from within, but when you talk to these veterans, it does make us all feel like Americans, and that's what we ought to feel like today. We ought to join hands no matter what political party, religion, or belief that we are. We need to join hands today and honor these people, these men and women who enable us to be different and live different in a free country any way we can. Thanks to Cockrells Auto Center as always, and thanks to Whalen & Company for allowing you to see us today on YouTube. And as always, folks, we appreciate you living on the air with us in Cynthiana.
Today's program has been brought to you by the E.D. Bullard Company, Van Hook Hardware, Emerson Farm, Cedar Ridge Health Campus, Whalen & Company, Sorrel Home Medical, Cynthiana Tire, Woodhead Funeral Home, by Eastside Pharmacy, by Cockrells Auto Center, by Hinton Mills, by Flower Depot, and by City Buzz Magazine.
The views and opinions expressed during today's show have been those of the guest and host